take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Hey, what's up everyone, it's Ryan here from The Y, and today we're gonna be taking a look at the Matrix Trilogy. No matter how you break it down, the films were revolutionary for their time. If you think about it, they were really the first ones to bring to life what everyone had always imagined comics to look like, with highly advanced CGI and groundbreaking bullet time effects. Not to mention the futuristic concepts of self-aware AI and the simulated reality in which the story takes place. On that note, let's get right into the video. Here's 50 facts you didn't know about the Matrix Trilogy. To understand the origin of the Matrix, we have to go back to the Wachowskis' first notable job, working as a writer for Marvel Comics' Ecto-Kid. This deepened their love and respect for that art form, and set in motion the idea that one day they make their own live-action comic. After leaving and going into scriptwriting, the duo wrote Assassins, which ended up getting purchased by Warner Bros. For $1 million. But here's the important part. The deal included 2 additional films, Bound and The Matrix. Upon making their directorial debut in Bound, the Wachowskis asked Warner Bros. About directing The Matrix, and they obliged. Yet we're still unsure of the pair's capability to handle a movie of that scope and scale. Knowing this, the Wachowskis eliminated all doubts in 2 major ways. First, they hired 2 comic book artists, including one from their days back at Ecto-Kid, to create a 600-page storyboard covering the entire film. And secondly, after things were moving along and Warner Bros. Again came around asking questions, the team sent over the first 5 minutes, which finally turned Warner Bros. Into believers. The opening scene in the movie hooks you almost instantly. There's cops, secret agents, a kung fu hacker girl, and for that day and age, innovative slow motion effects. And while it only took a mere 4 days to shoot, what you don't see are the 6 months of training that went into Carrie-Anne Moss being able to pull off all her own stunts. At the start of the film, Neo is very much like us, confused and just trying to figure out what the hell is going on, which explains why 44 out of his first 80 lines are questions.
Who's coming for me? What the hell do they want from me? How do you know all this? Why is this happening to me?
It's no secret that The Matrix borrows heavily from Hong Kong action cinema, and martial arts choreographer Yuen Wu-Ping was a big part of bringing that to life. Known for his work alongside pretty much all the Chinese action stars of the 80s and 90s. His approach consisted of developing each character's fighting style based on their different strengths. For Neo, it was diligence, Morpheus's resilience, Smith's precision, and Trinity's feminine grace.
I know Kung Fu.
The scene where Neo meets Trinity was filmed in a real BDSM club, and all the extras were just patrons doing what they enjoy. Not a huge surprise, as Lana was deep into that lifestyle, and even ended up marrying a dominatrix who worked at one of the clubs she frequented.
Sure, I'll go.
The woman in the red dress only appears on screen for a few seconds, yet makes quite an impression.
You listening to me, Neo?
Call it a bit of foreshadowing, but when Neo is arrested and dragged out of the office building, every shot has a woman in red passing by. In addition to doing their assigned jobs on set, every cast and crew member was required to read Simulacra and Simulation to understand the philosophy behind the movie. For Keanu Reeves, on top of reading Baudrillard, the Wachowskis had him study Out of Control and evolutionary psychology before even opening the script. And going back to Neo's introduction, Simulacra and Simulation is the book he hides things in. When Neo enters the car, Switch refers to him as the following.
Listen to me, Copper Top.
As the name suggests, copper top is slang for Duracell batteries, as they quite literally have copper-colored tops. And staying on the topic of names with suggestive meanings, the Wachowskis originally intended for Switch to be trans. The plan was to make them a woman in the Matrix and a man in the real world. However, because of sentiment back in 1999, Warner Bros. Vetoed the idea.
Not like this.
When I think of The Matrix, the first thing that comes to mind is the iconic digital rain. It's mysterious, cyberpunk, and all around fascinating to look at. And the story behind its conception is not at all what you'd expect. After the initial design wasn't to their liking, the Wachowskis hired Simon Whiteley to create something more in a Japanese manga style. Whiteley, who had a Japanese wife, went through some of her cookbooks looking for inspiration, and one happened to catch his eye. The recipes therein became the basis for the Matrix Code. So in a roundabout way, all that cryptic nonsense is basically just sushi recipes. throughout the movies we're shown glimpses of the Matrix code hidden in the background of shots, with one noteworthy example taking place in the scene with the rain dripping down the car windows. Keanu Reeves isn't what you call a method actor, though to make the pod scene more believable, he did shave his head and lose 15 pounds.
Why am my eyes, sir?
You've never used them before.
Color is one of the biggest symbols present throughout the entire trilogy. As you're probably aware, every sequence inside the simulated reality was tinted green, which can mean a couple different things. The Wachowskis said it was inspired by the phosphorus green of old computers, though it can also be symbolic of sickness and disease. And finally, green in this context is representative of the mind, as that's where the simulation takes place. Moving to the real world, a sorta cool blue symbolizes a very cold but honest reality, and in this sense, the color represents the physical body. So we have blue as the body, green as the mind. All that's left to make things whole is of course the spirit, represented by yellow. Looking at this from a religious point of view, spirit, heaven, and godliness are one and the same, meaning that for all intents and purposes, Machine City is the city of God, and the evidence backs this up. The script describes the city as celestial, even spiritual, and characterizes the machine that picks up Neo as a being that appears like an angel. Then you have the Animatrix using religious terminology to describe its creation.
And they christened the nation 01.
The central interface of the machines is called Deus Ex Machina, literally translating to God from the machine. And think for a second about the concept of the spirit world. By definition, it exists in the same place as the real world, although on a different plane, exactly how it's shown in the Matrix. Last but not least, you've got red, not as fleshed out as the other colors, yet it can definitely be seen as corruption or hell. We see this play out with the woman in red, Cypher, him eating steak, the red pods, the Merovingian, and in the elevator, the red button to descend to his club is even labeled hell. During the sparring session between Neo and Morpheus, the color of their hair and clothes resembles that of the yin and yang symbol.
You think that's air you're breathing now?
I'm sure if you went up to any actor nowadays and asked them, would you have taken the part of Neo in The Matrix? You'd be hard pressed to find someone who'd say no. But back in the late 90s, the exact opposite was true. Will Smith was the first person considered for Neo, though he declined after not fully understanding the concept and went off to do Wild Wild West. Brad Pitt was next up, and after initially accepting, backed out due to fatigue from 7 years in Tibet. Leonardo DiCaprio said no because he just finished Titanic and didn't want to embark on another big budget film right away. Val Kilmer turned down both Neo and Morpheus, at which point they said f it, Neo can be a woman, let's get Sandra Bullock, yet even that plan failed. And lastly, they dodged a bullet with this one. Nicolas Cage also declined the role of Neo. The film doesn't provide too many details about when and where the virtual reality is set in, though it does give a couple hints. Looking at Neo's file, we can see that he was born on March 11th, 1962 in Capital City, FU. Based on the date stamp contained in the phone tracing program, the first movie begins on February 19th, 1998 and ends on September 18th, 1999, meaning Neo is 36 years old and the original Matrix takes place over the course of 19 months. And how's this for a coincidence? Neo's passport expires on September 11th, 2001.
What good is a phone call if you're unable to speak?
Ghost in the Shell was the single biggest influence on The Matrix. Producer Joel Silver recalled how after the Wachowskis saw the film, they came to him and said, "We want to do that for real." They of course did just that and paid tribute to the anime in a number of sequences. Especially back in the 90s, financing a movie like The Matrix was a super risky endeavor. The script was difficult to understand and the genre even harder to pin down. So in order to go through with the project, the studio had to find a way to cut costs. And in this regard, the biggest money saver was to film the movie in Sydney. After subsidies, tax breaks, and favorable loans among a whole slew of other deal incentives, the cost of producing The Matrix fell from $100 million to a little over $60. Inside the training program designed to replicate The Matrix, you can spot the existence of many copies, showcasing a bit of laziness on the part of Mouse. Interestingly enough, the doubles weren't added in post-production, as all of them were in fact twins dressed in style to look exactly the same. When Keanu Reeves first met with the Wachowskis, they had a couple of questions for him, like would you be fine training in Hong Kong-style martial arts? And if so, would you be good doing it strenuously for 4 to 6 months? Keanu was like, yeah, that sounds okay. The only problem was he never mentioned his laundry list of injuries, which included a bulging and ruptured disc and spinal stenosis. Reeves went on to get a level 2 fusion and a plate put in his neck without anybody knowing. Though as he was forced to wear a neck brace during training, I assume he wasn't able to keep it a secret for long. Zooming in on the Nebuchadnezzar's nameplate, it reads, Mark III, number 11, which doesn't mean anything till you go to the corresponding Bible verse, Mark 3:11. And when the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, You are the Son of God.
Hallelujah. You're my savior, man.
So you're here to save the world.
Due to the studio's hesitancy over the Wachowskis directing and to a larger degree, the concept of the movie itself, they included one stipulation, that the plot includes some form of exposition so the audience isn't totally lost. It's never been explicitly stated, but it lines up that this brought about the whole construct scene. So I guess for once, the studio exerting creative control worked out for the better.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real?
Every single main actor got injured on set. Carrie Ann Moss twisted her ankle, yet didn't tell anybody over fear of losing the role. Lawrence Fishburne fractured his arm, and Hugo Weaving had a number of things go wrong, including having to get a polyp surgically removed, breaking his hip only a few days later, and then slipping a disc in his neck during a wire stunt. Here's 2 more allusions to the Matrix code hidden within the film. The soapy water is very resemblant of code being wiped away to reveal the illusion, and Morpheus's tie is an obvious reference. The lobby shootout contains some of the best action in the entire trilogy, and nearly all of it was done with practical effects. That includes the lobby itself, the pillars getting blown up, and even the fiery explosion. And remember how just as the elevator door closes, that slab perfectly falls off the pillar? Well, that was totally unplanned, yet a welcome surprise.
Holy shit.
Other than digital rain, what's something else synonymous with the Matrix? In my opinion, it's gotta be the sunglasses. You show anyone a pair of those, and they'll immediately think Morpheus. But if you're in the market for glasses exactly like the ones you see in the film, you're out of luck because they were all custom made to fit each character. Right before they go to see the Oracle, Morpheus nods at a blind man, and he somehow nods back. This makes me think he isn't just any old blind man, but rather a lookout for the Oracle. And canon-wise, it makes sense, as because it's been established that agents can see through the eyes of anyone connected to the Matrix, the blind man is the perfect incorruptible sentry. In many ways, the Oracle is a reference to Michelangelo's Delphic Sibyl, a prophet from ancient Greece who, much like the Oracle in the Matrix, inhaled fumes before making her prophecies.
What's really going to bake your noodle later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything?
Easily, the most memorable aspect of Agent Smith would have to be his voice.
Mr. Anderson.
To create such a distinct sounding voice, Weaving took inspiration from 2 major sources. The first being 1950s newsreaders like Walter Cronkite.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
And the second was none other than the Wachowskis themselves.
That it sort of brings some of that quality to action scenes. As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson.
The daring helicopter rescue barely worked out for Neo and Trinity, and the funny thing is, the same can be said for the production of the sequence itself. So I don't know who messed up with their research, but when it came time to fly the chopper to get the shots they needed, producers quickly realized that doing so was actually illegal. Luckily, because The Matrix was such a big deal in Sydney's burgeoning film production industry, the government slightly altered some laws to allow for the helicopter to fly unperturbed in Sydney airspace. Keanu Reeves is probably the nicest guy in Hollywood, and his generosity to the people who worked on The Matrix is the stuff of legends. He gifted all 12 of the stuntmen on the Matrix Reloaded Harley-Davidson bikes, helped out struggling crew members, and donated a large sum of money to the VFX and post-production crew members. Seeing as the character Switch was meant to be trans, And the Wachowski brothers are now the Wachowski sisters. It's not a huge shocker that the Matrix can be viewed as a trans allegory. You've got the fact that Neo feels like he's living a lie.
That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind.
Takes a red pill to see the truth. Many believe the red pill is symbolic of pre-Marin or hormone therapy. He then casts aside his dead name of Thomas Anderson and becomes Neo, with Agent Smith representing transphobia as he insists on calling him by his old name.
My name is Neo.
This might be reaching a little, but you can even say at the end of the first film, the camera zooms in and the last letters you see are M and F. What if I told you that Morpheus never actually says, "What if I told you?" After reading this, I was sort of taken aback, like, no, I can even hear him saying it in my head, I know it's real. But no, the meme was totally made up and it's simply just another Mandela effect.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
In a move that you don't see all too often, Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions were filmed back to back from March of 2001 to August of 2002. This might have been a tad overeager on the Wachowskis' part, but they originally planned to release the films only a week apart. Obviously, for marketing purposes, Warner Bros. Vetoed the idea and instead released them with a 6-month gap. Jet Li is one of the most renowned martial arts stars of his generation, and he nearly played Seraph in The Matrix. The role was actually written specifically for him, and he would have said yes had it not been for some bullshit. Warner Bros. Put a clause in the contract allowing them to record and put all his moves into a digital library where they would forever own the rights. He of course thought, why would I give away the intellectual property to techniques I've been practicing my entire life? So he was basically forced to say no. For the freeway car chase, GM donated over 300 cars for the sake of art and some pretty sick product placement. Most, if not all of them, were destroyed on the 2-mile stretch of road built at the decommissioned Alameda Naval Base. When the Merovingian curses in French, he's basically just stringing together a bunch of swear words.
Nom de Dieu de putain de bordel de merde de saloperie de connard d'enculé de ta mère,
The Burly Brawl is likely the most infamous fight sequence to come out of The Matrix. But was it really worth all the time and money? It took 27 days to film, and to this day is one of the most expensive action scenes ever, costing $40 million. Think about it this way, Warner Bros. Had to launch an entirely new company just for the scene. Don't get me wrong, for 1999 it still holds up decently well, but come on, you spend $40 million and these are the sound effects you end up with? As I explained earlier, the Matrix simulation has an overarching green tint, but it wasn't just the work of color grading, as they also put every piece of clothing through a green dye bath. It's sorta hard to tell if you're not looking for it, so let me show you what I'm talking about. As Agent Smith begins to differentiate himself from the other programs, he's dressed in a pure black suit compared to the other agents who still have a tinge of green. So I wouldn't say The Matrix was an overly difficult movie to comprehend. However, when it came to the architect scene, they were like, okay, here's everything you'd ever want to know, but good luck deciphering what he's saying cause the guy's literally a program and speaks in code. Helmut Bakaitis did an amazing job, especially considering his unknown quality, though Sean Connery was originally the person they had in mind. But as he had a really difficult time understanding what the part was all about, he declined.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix.
Morpheus is a callback to the Greek god of the same name, who is the god of dreams.
I have dreamed a dream. But now that dream is gone from me.
For the final chapter of the Matrix Trilogy, Warner Bros. Employed a very unique release strategy they dubbed 0 Hour. In other words, Matrix Revolutions premiered at the same exact time across the globe, 6 a.m. in Los Angeles, 9 a.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in London, 11 p.m. in Tokyo, and so on and so forth in more than 50 additional countries worldwide. At the Mobile Avenue station, we're introduced to Ramachandra and Kamala. The two of them, along with Neo, represent the Trinity in Hinduism. Ramachandra, manager of recycling operations, equates to Vishnu the Preserver. Kamala, a software programmer, is Brahma the Creator, and Neo the One is Shiva the Destroyer. Mobile is also an anagram for limbo, which is exactly what the station is. A waiting room for exiled programs to be smuggled to and from Machine City and the Matrix, or Heaven and Earth.
I don't even know where here is.
This place is nowhere. It is between your world and our world.
As you should know by now, the Wachowskis put in a lot of references to the Bible. Another one coming in the form of Agent Smith's license plate. IS-5416 corresponds to Isaiah 54:16, which reads as follows: Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work.
The purpose of life is to end.
Even though The Matrix was set in this world of artificial intelligence and virtual reality, the Wachowskis drew a lot of inspiration from nature in designing the machines. First, you've got the APUs, which were modeled after gorillas. Then there's the Sentinels, looking very reminiscent of squids. And finally, Machine City was made in the image of a coral reef. Because The Matrix was developed over a period of 5 years and 14 drafts, many storylines got left out of the final version. One of the bigger changes involved the ending sequence where, after coming back to life, instead of temporarily defeating Smith, Neo gives him the finger and he responds with the "no" as the elevator door closes. Another revision unveiled that there were 5 other people considered to be the one, all of whom died at the hands of agents. The architect does briefly mention this, but it was really only in passing.
This is the 6th version.
2 possible explanations. There were 5 ones before me.
In the closing moments of the original film, Neo calls the machines and basically declares war. Fast forward to the final battle, and they touch down at the same intersection in which Neo made that phone call. As one would expect from Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne said he read the script and didn't get why everyone else thought it was confusing. Though in the same breath, he said he had his doubts the movie would ever get made because it was so smart.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth.
While The Matrix was certainly a pioneer in virtual cinematography, a surprising number of sequences were still done with practical effects. There's one shot in particular that's really hard to believe isn't done with CGI, when the hundreds of Agent Smith clones lined the streets to watch the final battle. Amazingly, through the joint efforts of multiple departments, photorealistic dummies and extras with Agent Smith masks were all created from molds taken of Hugo Weaving. And if you look close enough, there were actually 3 types of masks: grumpy, happy, and neutral. In the last scene of the trilogy, the bench is inscribed with the following message: in memory of Thomas Anderson. The credits of the first 2 movies play songs by Rage Against the Machine for obvious reasons. The third movie breaks the trend and doesn't play one of their songs because the fight is finally over.
Is this real?
Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you still want more videos about The Matrix, I actually did one a while back delving a little bit deeper into the content with all the theories and stuff like that, so I should leave a link to it somewhere if I don't forget. Alright, till next time, have a great day everyone.